Happy times. At the heart of Washington, an ambassador in his element. And then an abrupt end after the leaking of sensitive cables lambasting Donald Trump, incurring his wrath.
We're not big fans of that man, and he has not served the UK well.
Mr. Johnson.
A decisive factor in Sir Kim's decision was the failure of Boris Johnson to voice support.
I will keep him until he's due to retire, and I think we'd like to know if you would.
Well, I'm not going to be so presumptuous.
Rowing back today?
Hi, look, I just heard that Kim Darroch resigned, and I want to say that I regret that, really, because I think he was a superb diplomat, and I worked with him for many years, and I think that whoever leaked his diptels really has done a grave disservice to our civil servants, to people who give impartial advice to ministers, and I hope that whoever did it is run down, caught and eviscerated, quite frankly.
Until yesterday afternoon, Sir Kim had planned to weather the storm, but the lack of support from Boris Johnson and a fresh Twitter outburst from Donald Trump convinced him to go on his terms. In a letter to the head of the Foreign Office, Sir Kim wrote,
"Since the leak of official documents from this embassy, there has been a great deal of speculation surrounding my position and the duration of my remaining term as ambassador. I want to put an end to that speculation. The current situation is making it impossible for me to carry out my role as I would like."
We have always believed in sharing the necessary information with all officials who needed to know. And over decades, that system has served us well. But clearly, right now, it is under unprecedented pressure.
Cabinet ministers who banged the table in support of Sir Kim Darroch here at their weekly meeting yesterday are spitting tacks at his departure. One minister said to me, "This is what happens when you have a stupid, spoilt child as president." As for Boris Johnson's less than equivocal support for Sir Kim, another minister accused him of a despicable and cowardly act.
I don't know what was going through Kim Darroch's mind, but I can imagine that if you're sitting in Washington and you are feeling pretty beleaguered with tweets coming in from the president, you never know what's going to be said, you are going to look first of all for the staunchest support back home. He had that from the Prime Minister, he had supportive words from Jeremy Hunt. They were very obviously lacking in what Boris Johnson said last night. In my own mind, that must have been a factor in Kim's decision.
Lord Ricketts is disappointed in Boris Johnson, who tried to make amends today by telephoning Sir Kim.
I can imagine he had in the front of his mind the relationship with President Trump, but as his Prime Minister, you've got to have the capacity to deal with all sorts of different factors and angles at the same time. And the angle of the signal that would send to your ambassador and your civil service clearly wasn't there.
Boris Johnson threw Kim Darroch under a bus because he wants to stay on the right side of the American president. What has happened to our country? People are not stupid. People are not stupid. They can see the next Prime Minister refusing to stand up for him the night before, and then the next day him realising that his position was untenable. Any decent Prime Minister would have said, "I stand by my ambassador, and I don't care what the American president says. He's one of ours, and we stand with ours."
A senior Tory fears for British diplomacy.
But what's concerning here is that the reactions of a head of state, a host government, has caused a British ambassador to feel that their position was untenable, even though all they were doing is what diplomats do, which is to report factually on the situation they find. And there is a danger here that Britain looks weak, looks able to be bullied, and looks like it won't stand up for those it sends abroad. And that is a very dangerous lesson.
Crisis in the Foreign Office after one of their own fell on his sword. This story is far from over as they await a successor.